Yeah, let's go for it.
Okay. How did the Green Man come to feature in your thoughts originally? And what was the process by which you began writing about him?
Well, I think there are three things that were on my mind at the time, which sort of brought the Green Man to me as a theme for writing. The first is I was noticing that a lot of writing was referencing so-called indigenous culture. And I noticed that indigenous culture was often being talked about as something that always happens somewhere else, and not on this island, but it was other cultures that had indigenous culture. And I wondered what our own indigenous culture might be for anybody who lives here, but the sort of the subterranean culture which our society may have partially paved over. And in the talking about indigenous culture that I was reading about, I felt that there was sort of romanticization of it as well. All indigenous culture is wise and uniformly so. They're all more or less the same as how it's been treated, which is to orientalize this. And actually, it's well intentioned, but I would call that a kind of form of unwritten racism. Mm-hmm. So I started to wonder whether we have an indigenous culture, because it's certainly not easy to locate. And I started to wonder about medieval society, pagan society before that. What was there which we may have forgotten, and what might be recoverable. So that was on my mind. Maybe some writing about indigeneity in this country. At the same time, I re-encountered a book I read as a child at the age of 9, which is a beautiful children's book by the American author, Gail E. Haley. And it had quite a profound effect on me at the time. As I met this Green Man, Gail wrote a story for the Green Man. And it starts essentially with a kind of vain, civilized prince, a man of fine food, a man of martial prowess. And he gets lost in the forest in every way you could imagine in Gail's story. And he finds himself again. He finds himself in communion with the natural world around him, the life around him. He starts to become part of it, become one of the animals, still a human, one of the animals, one of the participants in this ecology, which he's never encountered before, because he's in the palace. And it really struck me that this is a story about a man, but a different kind of man, a man that is not, certainly not an alpha male or something like that, a man who has started to lose that and find what you might call a kind of balance with the world around him, where there's more mutuality in his relationship with the world around him. It's a children's story, but I felt I was picking that up actually as a child in some pre-linguistic way. So that had an effect on me. It struck me that belonged to our folklore, our buried folklore. And then the third thing is obviously we're facing this major global predicament, which is the ecological crisis, which tends to center on questions of climate, but includes really so many other factors related to how we relate to the life around us, essentially. Topsoil is eroding, biodiversity is being lost, and a lot of the climate debate, very practically and sensibly, centers on how we reduce carbon. But underneath that question, I wanted to explore the real issue, well, where the problem comes from, which is a relationship with the world around us which isn't working, and to ask again about what a kind of flourishing relationship with the life around us, particularly the more than human life, but also the human life, might look like. So with those three things swimming in my heart and mind and spirit, I thought, how about writing something short? As well researched as I can make it, but something short, exploratory, imaginative, story-led about this figure of the Green Man who's so difficult to trace in history. He doesn't really have a story you can just draw a line through. It's much more stories over stories, family resemblances of images, and so on. But there's something there that holds together as this figure. And it feels to me that he and the people who have conjured him over history are trying to give us something. And I'd like my book to help that gift come. But that was how it sort of started.
It does feel like you have done that as well. and it's so interesting hearing you talk about those three strands and how this character does embody those things.
Yeah, I think he does.
Yeah. I think this question goes on nicely from what you've just said. In the book, you talk about the relevance of the Green Man today. Can you say a bit more about that?
Okay, so the relevance of the Green Man today, I've said some of that, but I think as a man, what we're looking at in the Green Man is a different kind of figure, a definite non-patriarchal man. Much of the difficulty we face today comes down to, I believe, dominant gender norms, which tend to be male gender norms, which women also participate in often, but are led by men in such a way that I would see the dominant idea essentially as a successful man commands the life around him, stands over his world, knows how to bend it to his will, knows how to succeed on those terms, and then is rewarded. And we've just seen that in the US elections, and all the people gathering around the new president, the president-elect. We see a lot of it dominating our political life. It's also true of our own political culture to some degree as well. And what I would suggest is maybe happening in America is it's losing its powers. It's slowly collapsing as a superpower. And in a kind of unconsciously desperate act, it's cleaving to this sort of strongman character who is then therefore resurgent. So we think of Donald Trump as having a Thor-like hammer. He sees a problem and wields it and lands his hammer on whatever he thinks is a problem. I wrote a little poem in the hospital bed lately, and it goes, it's because Donald Trump's solution to the immigration crisis, as he sees it, coming from the south, from Mexico, is more border guards and a pay rise. Everything's done in tens. So he says, the poem goes, 10,000 more border guards, a 10% pay rise for all. Down swings the £10 hammer, but where is the nail? So this is a worrying trend of sort of resurgent patriarchal law. And in the Green Man, I feel we find a very different kind of man, a man who has escaped from that and liberated himself, or been liberated through his encounter with the life around him. It's transformed him. It's stripped him of his old identity. Still has it in the background. But now he's finding himself for the very first time. And he no longer means any harm. He means to love the world around him. This is in Gail's story. But really we find the same kind of theme running through the book and the other stories we have.
So it's, it's like he has I feel like you're wishing a relevance for him as well.
Yeah, I wish.
Yeah.
It's a little obscure to fix on this figure no one knows about. But there's just it's a way in.
Absolutely. Okay, so in the book you talk a lot about wildness. Can you tell us what wildness means to you, and how has your understanding of wildness changed in the writing of this book?
Those are really wonderful questions. I'm a little reluctant to say what wildness is, because part of the point of the book and the approach I'm trying to take is to tell stories which conjure a feeling of wildness in the experience of the reader, in their own life history that they can relate to in their own way, which might be different for different readers. If I had to define it, though, I would probably say something like wildness is all life which has not been domesticated for human use, and that may be or not fully domesticated for human use. And that conjures, I think, sort of obvious the wild forest, the wild water, giant squid at the bottom of the sea, the gannet, all the more than human world around us, which is still mostly parts of it out of reach of domestication, the bottom of the sea, for example, thankfully, where wildlife is able simply to be itself. But I think I'd want to draw wildness much more broadly. If you have a kitchen table that's made of wood, you'll find it in the grains of wood. You find it in music. When I dance, if it's working, I find myself moving away from the domesticated, if you like, structure of the dance, where you put your foot here, you put your foot there, you put your foot there, which we learn in the class. I teach that in classes. That sort of starts to disappear, the ego becomes softer, the music starts to lead the body. You notice the body doing things that the music has invited before you notice them, you're witnessing it happen. Your partner is in this too in a ritual way, we're sharing this moment, and the music is alive inside you. That's a wild experience. Listening to music can be a wild experience. Even with a domesticated pet, we're talking about cats and dogs earlier. If you look inside a dog's eye, you can see the wolf is still there. So that even in a very domesticated animal, perhaps the most domesticated animal we encounter as human beings, the dog, also the cat. If you look, you can find this wildness within the domestic, within the cow, within a domestic cow as well. And I think there's wildness in human relationships. Lovemaking is a wild. So I'd want to draw wildnesses broadly and really say, although there are so many problems in the world through the sort of attempt to capture life and turn it to the human will, wildness is spilling everywhere all the time if we wish to notice it and allow it to be. And it's constantly trying to give us something, constantly. It's funny to say it's trying to give us a gift because it implies some sort of intention, but there is a providence within that of some kind. It is a nourishing thing, and it is, I would say, it's trying to save us. It's a step too far, but I'm very close to say it's trying to save us.
And you can understand why it is something that sort of structures in society also fear, if you describe it in that way. It's something that certain people would like to suppress.
Indeed, Barbara Ehrenreich wrote this wonderful book called Dancing in the Streets. It's a history of ecstatic dance, as well as of its suppression, often by in the global south by Christian missionaries, but also by authorities are afraid of Vladimir Putin. He's terrified of queer people. He doesn't know what to do with it at all. So there's a suppression through the sort of civilized structures of that, and we need to remember to dance that dance.
And do you feel like this book has helped you understand that a bit more, or has it changed your way of thinking about it?
For sure. I mean, I think writing any book changes the author beyond what they would expect. Exploring a deep vein of something, which is transfers back and transforms the person writing it. Certainly, I felt more in love with the wildlife around me through the process of trying to receive it in the course of writing this little book.
If we've read your previous books, we'll know you often bring your experiences of conversations with other people and places you've been into your books, which you have done here. Can you tell us a bit, maybe an example of that, and also why is that important to you to bring in those different pieces?
It's important to me because these things are real phenomena. I mean, we call the Green Man energy. It is real in the world today. And I'd like to point to places where I find it, to testify to its presence among us, through the lives, through the way some people are leading their lives, through the way people are engaging with the world around them, through activism and active care and community. And I want to say this is where it's real. Alternatively, and many books are like this, and it's not a bad thing, but you can write a sort of abstract, discursive, kind of straight history of a folklore figure like the Green Man, very informative. It has a central argument, and at the end of it, the author hopes that they've convinced you of what their essential thesis, and the whole book's been leading up to this. I want you to believe what I believe. And I wanted to avoid that. I wanted to collect stories together. There's a book about ecology, and I wanted the stories to feel like an ecology and leave the reader with their own feeling and their own incipient sense of what this might be, that they can follow through themselves and make their own sense of it in their own way. I talked to various people. I tried to interview more women than men, because of their male heavy book, because of the figure at the centre of it, who are often the first to discover and explore this different kind of man. Actually, they did the pioneering work, thinking of Gale, did lots of research, Kathleen Basford, who went all over Europe looking for Green Man figures in churches and did the initial surveys, and 10 years of work, devoted work. Marion Shaw, who has brought so much to the land rights movement, who really established the theory and the history of land rights in this country, which is now being picked up by younger people. And books like the Book of Trespass and Hayes and other people are drawing pioneering, not sufficiently credited often work. And for her as well, it began pond dipping in the marshes, picking up magnificent creatures, wondering at them, feeling awe. And her passion for land rights, she told me, came out of this initial, I would say, a falling in love with the living world around her. And it's often through women and community rather than individual men, men in those communities too, that this energy of the Green Man, ironically, is strongest because it's most communitarian, it's most mutual, it's most receptive, and it's most generous. And we men, even we're socialized into these patriarchal norms, we have to travel so much further to shed some of that before we can begin to feel it. So I wanted to invite more women and some men interviewed as well. But really it's because it's in the stories that people tell that this thing actually really comes to life, because it is alive in our lives.
Can you talk a bit about writing generally and this book in particular as a form of activism?
Yes. Well, I was talking about drawing the word wildness broadly. I think we should do the same with the word activism. We think of activism, perhaps say, who are the activists? So the people who block the motorways, people who do the hands to the road, people at COP26, Greta Thunberg, these figures who are salient in the media and so on. And that is all activism. It is a sort of sharp end of the wheel. I want to bless and encourage every single act, every single non-violent act. But I think the nurses have been caring for me in the hospital, for example. It just occurs to me now. I mean, it's an act of care, it's a professional responsibility. I feel the human warmth behind that too. I felt that with almost everybody, 60 or 70 people who cared for me in different ways while I was in hospital. A nurse only has to say, and this is my activism, to make it activism, to say that instantiating care in the world is a political act. That nurse may not do that, or they may do that. But as soon as they do, it counts in. If you cook a meal for someone who is depressed, activism. So part of that, there's room for everybody brings gifts to this, whoever they are. You know, maybe not if you're an arms dealer, and that's your main focus and passion. But pretty much everybody can bring their own activism so that it's all held in common. And we need so many different ways of expressing that. Essentially expressing care and thoughtfulness for the world around us. That's all activism is. We all disagree about what it should look like and opposing political tension and that. But that impulse to care, to be thoughtful, to be rooted, and to participate in the life of the world is where activism is, and writing's time. So it's one of those ways. It's not more important than any other, but it participates. I think it contributes something exploratory, which can then inform the more practical expressions of activism, and that's just where I found my life.
And following on from that, thinking in particular about the Merlin chapter in the book, where Merlin turns away from violence and has this visceral horror of it. But actually throughout the book, you see this sense of hope about a kinder, gentler world, and the way we are to each other, but also the way we behave towards the planet. Do you think this book is a book about peace? Would you call it a book about peace?
I would. It took me I've been a peace activist essentially my whole life. And at first for me that meant war harm people. We need to stop it, which is a sort of the front door, if you like, of peace activism. And it's evolved from there and enriched over time into something, I'm glad to say, is more nuanced than that and more encompassing than that. And I draw on the Semitic words shalom, salam, shlomo, which all mean really something like the integrity of relationships, the fullness of being, shared being, the dignity of our shared being. Or Mary Oliver says, the family of things, all being together, living together, bending towards their own flourishing through relationship, which was informed by theology that I read, and activism and my own thinking too. And the encounters I've had with other people who are heading that way in a similar way, with language, but same sort of sense of force of being, rather than just the absence of violence. So I really loved being able to write a book that, because I've been preoccupied with violence my whole life, it's something to confront. A lot of what I've done is trying to say no to something that's harmful, in my view, always. I've never been able to reach a point where I thought that act of violence is justified because it's a violation. So it's been refreshing to be able to say, but yes, to this. And when we're thinking about what an ecology is, we're really talking about shalom, where every being participates, accommodates other beings. There's conflict in there too, there's tension, but essentially you have a flourishing abundance of life expressed through all these different living beings, some of which are human, We have societies like that too. And this for me is a vision worthy of the work in the future. So talking about green man, ecology, ecological crisis, underneath that, I feel there needs to be a deep affirmation, not only an objection to the problems, but an affirmation of what we actually are, which is living beings on the earth.
And that comes through just so strongly.
Thank you.
Sort of twofold question. Has your life living on a boat, living in Oxford, has that influenced the writing of this book? And also, I have this quote from your book, which I just find very beautiful. You're talking about the green man, and you say he reminds us, as we need to be reminded, that all our stories unfold within the viriditas, the green truth of the living earth. And obviously, you started thinking about this book, I think, before you were diagnosed with cancer. But as you have been writing this book with terminal cancer, how has that affected the writing of this book and that sense of coming from the earth, being of the earth? Has that, can you tell us a bit about how your diagnosis has kind of affected how you think that?
Yeah, I'd like to. And thank you for the question as well. I'll take the river first.
Yeah, take the river first.
I don't want to leave the river out of it.
Yeah.
They do actually belong to each other, these questions. So I like the way you played them. Thank you for that. The river at first was a beautiful place to live. I live on a boat, or promise. And I've always loved living on a river and just being among living things. But over time, and this is unbidden by me, the river has become my greatest teacher as well. It has sunk into my skin. I feel now I am one of the animals in the community of the river. I feel the life of the river as it moves past the boat. I watch the fish under the water, the geese floating past, the heron landing, the kingfisher flying, the dragonflies in the summer. I jump in the river, I jump out of the river, as do many of my friends here. Oxford's a big, wild swimming place. Lots of people love this. The Thames, as it comes through this island's greatest river, and it comes through a narrow river really up this far, and then of course it goes through past the House of Parliament, hopefully being a teacher there too, where it's rather muddy and filthy at that point. So I've learned, it has taught me what it means to belong within an ecosystem. And I feel it. I walk home along the towpath at night and I feel that the animals move away to make way and move again behind them. And you see that happening. It's like they know I'm one of them. They're not very interested in me. Why would they be? But I'm on that big animal that lives on that funny metal thing. So it wrote this book. It's really. It's all coming. And that's just happened to me, and I've just witnessed it flowing through the river, flows through more and more. And the question you ask about cancer, actually, the rivers, or the greenery that issues from the green man's mouth. When I look at that now, I see my own cancer coming out of me, killing me. But I see this wildness. This is nature within me expressing itself in a new way. So I have a peculiar relationship with it because this is wildness within me expressing itself, nothing unnatural is happening in my body. It's not something of a battle, like in a war. It's a beautiful expression of life. It's just that it also wreaks havoc and kills the host. Work that one out. No, I can't either. But I have a peculiar relationship with it, where I feel I'm witnessing nature rather than battling and invading. Something at that level is not welcome. Obviously, the discomfort it brings. I'm not very good at that. But I'm okay with it. I'm okay with it ending my life early. It's not something like, I just feel grateful to have lived at all. Really. And any more feels like really.
And this book, what an expression of that as well, of that wildness coming from. I feel like you articulated in such a profound way, and it's a gift for us to have that. I think.
That's really kind of to say. Yeah.
What are your hopes for this book?
Hopes? This is the fourth book I've written. Loads of reports and spent a long time writing stuff. The fourth book, I've never really had hopes for them. It's like I finished them and I'm really bad at following through. And it's like, well, that's that. You just fly in the world or die in the world. With this one, I do feel a little different. I mean, I'm trying to woo the reader. And I hope that lands somehow. If it doesn't, it's okay. I don't mind. I don't mind if it dies in the world, really. I'm very glad to bring it. And it will take its chances. I hope that the reader may feel their own love for the life within them and the life around them, which is essentially the same thing. The life that moves through them, the life that moves around them, the life that provides their life, the life to which they belong, the life that gives them their life. It may not do all those things, but if it kind of says, hey, how about that? And if that lands somehow, I'll be delighted. Even if only one person did that.
You've got one person.
Well, that's good. It's a good start. I'm glad it's you too. Yeah, thank you.
And have you enjoyed writing it?
You bet. It's so refreshing to be able to write a yes. There are parts of the book where I'm trying to confront violence against writing. I don't want to forget that's part of the purpose of it. Ecological violence, but social violence and all other kinds of violence. And poverty is a kind of violence, injustice, racism, and all kinds of violation. But yeah, it's so refreshing and enjoyable to write something about something I love and just write that yes out as a book. Yeah.
And the fact that it is a book about a lot of things that are, for want of a better word, horrible about the world, it also is an extremely joyous book. I think that sense of exuberance and joy really comes through.
Well, I'm really delighted to hear that. Because some of my books have been a lot less joyful and a bit more hard-going than the reader. So maybe it's high time I did that. Very nice. Thank you so much. It's feels such an honour to be asked these questions in what is an interview, a sort of slightly one-way conversation. It's a very generous thing to offer. I'm deeply grateful to you for doing that. So thank you, Lou.
Thank you. Well, I said to you earlier, I feel like one thing I love about this book is that it doesn't answer loads of questions. It opens lots of doors that feel really exciting to want to have a peep in, and it's really, really nice to get to talk to you a bit more about what's through those doors or gates, maybe.
I've really enjoyed it. Thank you.
Thank you.